My Streamlabs opened up the right way. Like, I didn't have to sign in like a lunatic like I've been having to do every single night. Uh-oh, what's going on now? Oh, it's going straight to TikTok. Okay, hi TikTok, hi Facebook, hi Twitch, hi YouTube. What a day. Whew. It's been a whirlwind of a day. Had my eye appointment. That was crazy. They do the puff of air, but the puff of air was fine. It was fine. I had my contacts. I was really proud of myself because usually I don't stick up for like things like a, you know, in order to be like not too polite or something. I say something. Well, anyway, they normally, if I have my contacts, they'll give you a box and it'll have like contact lens case and solution. So when I got there, she said, "Do you have your contacts in?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Okay." So she goes into this thing and I see, okay, there's new cases. That's fine. But then she goes and hands me like a saline like this, and it's been open, it's been used. Now, I don't know about your neck of the woods, but people are getting COVID like crazy and all this stuff, cough and hacking. I'm not going to use a saline that I don't know who in the world touched that saline, used that saline, and then you're going to touch that, do your lenses and put them in your eye, right? So, no, not doing that. So I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not touching that saline. I'd like a new one, please. If you don't have a new sample kit, I'm just not going to take my contacts out." So then she was like, and I was proud of myself because normally like maybe I would have used it and then been like really upset, and then Jimmy would have said, "Well, why didn't you tell them?" So I told them. I was very assertive and did so. She finally came out with one and then gave it to me. But I am like literally blind without my contact lenses in for a while. So when I was taking the left one out, I thought it had like flopped over the little cup of the case, but then I put it back in. I looked as clear as I could. It was there. Close it up. When I go to leave, I open my contacts. There's only one. Okay, so now I'm like, great. And my prescription is not like a prescription that's just readily available. So I went up to the desk and I said, "I don't know how this happened, but I only have one contact lens. So if he doesn't have anything in the back," so she's like, "Oh, I don't know." So Jimmy and Ethan were coming to pick me up, and then he said, "This will work for you." And I put it in, and thankfully it worked for me. But I have to go back in 3 months just because I have a family history of glaucoma, and so they're hyper vigilant with stuff. My pressure is not high; it was something else. But everything, yeah. So I had all that stuff, and then I got to pick out frames, which I hardly ever wear glasses, but I don't even have glasses around. I don't even know where mine are, so it's a good idea for me to get a pair of glasses. So that's what I did, and then I had to do some shopping and stuff like that, and then I came home. Oh, and last night, our internet went down, and then this morning, our electricity was off until about 15 minutes before I had to leave the house for my appointment. Crazy, right? All right, sorry. So now you've heard all the venting about my day. How was your day? Let me see here. We're going to talk about lots to talk about today, and I'm sorry about it. We're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger's hearing. We're going to talk about Delphi closing and the verdict watch, and we're going to talk about Micah Miller's husband, John Paul Miller, getting arrested. And you know that the FBI was searching his house the other day, right? Okay. So what should we do? Kohberger first? They want to get the death penalty off for him. All right, so let's get Mr. Kohberger up here. And you know he is originally from not too far from me. So, in Pennsylvania. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the graphic up here for him. This guy is so perplexing, isn't it? Like the way he had that Reddit of all that criminal defense stuff, and how he just went off the rails, huh? And did this. It's crazy. How calm he was when they stopped him and his father on their way back, right? Crazy stuff. I'd like to see his interrogations. And this is just being a little jerk, like it always is. My computer's being a nutcase about, aren't these cute? Look at these cute. I'm cutting these out. I'm going to decoupage these. Snoopy and the gingerbread is like really, I know gingerbread's around all the time, but it just seems like it's made a much bigger appearance this season. I have a beautiful gingerbread house I got at Cracker Barrel back in 2021. The day before I found out I had COVID. Okay. So that doesn't want to work there. So, hi Captain Lee fan. Okay, I just saw you. I tried to get over there, but I can't. Trying to get Bryan Kohberger's image up here. My computer doesn't want to go. There it goes. Okay. Let's see if it's going to cooperate now. All right, hopefully. Here we go. And of course it's super duper tiny. I'll make it larger. Okay, I have to open a new Zoom, I know, for the peoples. I will in a minute. Okay, got it. All right, so let's see what's going on. So his defense team is saying that the trial should not permit the death penalty as punishment, and they're arguing that the state has no real means of executing an inmate and that the methods to execute an inmate are unconstitutional. The death penalty hearing in Boise, Idaho on whether Bryan Kohberger can be executed if he's convicted came as the campus community prepares to mark next week's 2 years. Wow, it's already 2 years? 2 years since the quadruple homicide in the college town of Moscow. Now, 2 years. So we're talking about 2022. Wow. Ann Taylor, his defense attorney, one of his defense attorneys says, and I quote, "I don't believe our Constitution allows for us to move forward and make him sit in death row for years and years and years if the way Idaho is doing it right now isn't really working. It's not a realistic option," end quote. And then the Ada County District Court Judge Stephen Hippler, so John Judge is gone. So you're saying the anxiety of not knowing is a constitutional violation? And then Ann Taylor continued, and I quote, "It is anxiety, it is fear, it is the not knowing." Latah County prosecutors responded that Idaho's current method of execution, lethal injection, is now available, and when that method could change down the line, we don't have a time and effort debating what we don't know in the future. You don't get to short circuit the whole thing, that death is off the table, the prosecutor said. That's not to say decades from now there's not going to be a method to put him to death. Idaho currently allows death by lethal injection, as well as a firing squad, which Republican Governor Brad Little signed into law last year as an alternative method. While the death penalty in Idaho remains on the books, it hasn't been used since 2012 because the state, like many others, has had trouble procuring the lethal injection drugs. Well, so did South Carolina, but they've started the executions again. That changed in February when the state located the necessary drugs and planned to execute Thomas Creech, who was convicted of 5 murders in 3 states. But the state abandoned the execution after prison staff failed to establish an IV line. What? Wait a minute. The state abandoned the execution after prison staff failed to establish they couldn't get an IV line, exposing the difficulties with administering the death penalty. How could they not get an IV line? Do you understand that? Does anybody? Another execution attempt of Creech, 74, has been scheduled for November 13th. There's something else that's... Coincidentally, the same date in which the 4 University of Idaho students were fatally stabbed in 2023. So that's crazy, isn't it? Thomas Creech, they couldn't get an IV line, and now they're going to do it again on November 13th. So isn't this all ridiculous? Because if November 13th they successfully execute this Thomas Creech, then this whole hearing is for naught, right? This doesn't even make sense. Creech's execution was temporarily halted by a federal judge this week as he appeals. Okay, so it's not. It's not. Okay. At Thursday's hearing, Ann Taylor said it's unclear whether there would still be available drugs, and keeping Kohberger on death row would be dehumanizing. So if he's convicted of this would be dehumanizing to him. Really? Okay. Looking forward, we just don't have those answers yet, Ann Taylor said. We just don't know how that will unfold. Hippler, the judge, denied the defense's request to hear from expert testimony regarding the constitutionality of the death penalty. Meanwhile, the judge also heard arguments about whether Kohberger may pose a danger to others. Prosecutors have said in court filings that 4 aggravating factors exist in the case against Bryan Kohberger. He's going to turn 30 years old later this month, making the crime more severe and the death penalty warranted. There are multiple victims. The murders were especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel. The suspect exhibited utter disregard for human life, and he has a propensity to commit murder, which will probably constitute a continuing threat to society. And that's what the filing said. Ann Taylor asked the judge to strike the state death penalties request, which was based on the claims of aggravating factors. The defense also suggested allowing for a special phase if Kohberger is found guilty that would require the jury to determine if he is then eligible for capital punishment, an extra step that prosecutors want denied. Hippler said he would issue a written ruling on the death penalty motion at a later date. He said that he would allow Kohberger to appear in civilian attire at his trial, and on Thursday, Kohberger appeared in court in a suit. He was arrested in December of 2022, which is, we're going on 2 years. I can't even believe that's already 2 years. That's crazy. More than a month after the 4 students were murdered. Yep. So he has a not guilty plea. Authorities have not publicly confirmed a motive, and a gag order has prevented many involved in the case from speaking. The prosecution says it expects to present at trial DNA evidence, details about cell phone use, and security videos to connect Bryan Kohberger to the crime. Kohberger's defense has suggested that he often went on late-night drives and that the cell phone tower data would show that he had been doing so miles away when the 4 students were killed. Next summer's trial was moved to the Idaho capital of Boise from Latah County after the defense successfully argued that there would be strong possibility for bias among potential jurors, and the local community does not have the resources for such a highly anticipated proceeding. Okay. Let me go on. Let's go on to John Paul Miller's arrest. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's just get his picture up here so we know that we are changing subjects. All right, here's his mugshot. Make him a little larger. All right. Let me see here. He's been released. He's out on bond now, but he was arrested after an apparent disturbance in the Market Common area. Miller, 45, was charged by the Myrtle Beach police with third-degree assault and battery on November 6th. Miller appeared before a judge Thursday morning. He was given a $776 bond and released. Okay, so let's see that they posted on their Facebook page. There is a small video that showed what happened, and it was an altercation with protesters. So on Wednesday, it says November 6th at 2:38 p.m., officers from the Myrtle Beach Police Department were called to the 700 block of Hemlock Avenue for a report of a disturbance. The situation is under control, but you will continue to see a police presence in the area. So what happened was this woman was going after him, I guess, questioning him, and then he squared off and hit her on her hat, I believe it was, with his cell phone, or tapped her on it with her cell phone. Let me go over here. What else we can find out? This has nothing to do with the death of his wife, just so you know that. It has to do with an altercation he had with a protester. I know some channels are trying to act like it had something to do with his wife. No, it didn't. Did it have something to do with the raid? No, it didn't. It had to do with a altercation between him and a protester. The incident that led up to Miller's arrest is still under investigation, but news crews captured footage of Miller seemingly having it out with a woman who was protesting at his church. Miller has been the target of protests ever since his estranged wife, Micah Miller, hold on 1 second, died by suicide in April. What did you say? You walked right up to me, Miller demanded of the woman in the video on the confrontation. He was then seen gesturing at the woman, who claimed that he put his hands on her. The heated exchange came one day after Miller's church, Solid Rock, was emptied out and even had its website and phone number disconnected. Both Miller and a church advisor declined to comment to local media. Last week, the FBI executed a search warrant at Miller's home. Miller's lawyer claimed he had no idea what the search was related to, though the pastor has been the center of controversy since his wife's death. Okay, let's see here. This is something from the confrontation. This says Justice for Micah on it. And you see this and that. There is a video of that circulating around. I did see it. Okay. So, he was seen cleaning up the church this week, and he's like smiling at who's ever taking his picture. In the months since her death, Micah's relatives have begged law enforcement to deeply investigate the case and allegations that Miller had abused her. Micah had accused Miller of slashing her tires, installing a tracking device on her car, hospitalizing her against her will, and grooming her, beginning when she was just 10 years old. John Paul Miller made further headlines when he announced Micah's death casually during a sermon at Solid Rock. He said, and I quote, "I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. It was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina." He later claimed that Micah suffered from mental illness and had been hospitalized multiple times in the past, while insisting that he tried to raise her from the dead. Miller denied all the accusations of abuse and involvement in his wife's death. News of Micah's death and the allegations against John Paul Miller divided the Solid Rock community, and the rifts grew deeper once the FBI launched an investigation into the situation. When the probe was opened in May, Damian McLean of the Robeson County Sheriff's Office clarified that the investigation was separate from Micah's death. The FBI removed several items from Miller's home during the search last week, including some computer equipment. Both the Solid Rock Church and Miller's house are part of a $5.59 million real estate portfolio. Hang on 1 second. This is taking... Okay, this is really driving me crazy, so locking up, come on. Okay, and he got out on $776 bond, right? So he is out. And it's managed by Solid Rock Ministries, that $5.59 million real estate portfolio. It was not immediately clear if Solid Rock is going to be relocating or if it's just closing down. After cleaning out its Myrtle Beach location, last month Miller was named as a registered agency for another entity, Living Water Church at Market Common, Inc. So that's what we have on John Paul Miller. And now we're going to go on to Delphi, because it was a big day. Richard Allen's fate is in the jury's hands. I told you last night there's a lot of people that are very scared that the jurors may have some reasonable doubt and that he may get off. So, yeah. Let's see what's going to go on there. Maybe you feel that way, maybe you don't. So it's day 18. Whoopsie. And we have it's asking me to stop running a script. Yeah, stop running a script, okay? All right, here we go. And let me just get I think they would have. Let me just change the graphic because hope you guys are all doing well. I was actually thought I was going to get home enough to do a pop-up with the 3 people if the other 2 people were interested that didn't get their last turn last night. But then I got home later than I thought, so I don't know if we'll do it tomorrow. I have to see. There's stuff I wanted to pack up, but got to okay, so let's get put this up for the graphic tonight. All right. So let's try to get this right from the start here. (9 a.m.) After 17 days of witness testimony and evidence being presented, the jury is going to hear from both the prosecution and the defense in the closing arguments that began on Thursday morning. Special Judge Francis Gull told the jury on Wednesday that they would hear several hours of closing arguments, and she told each side they would have up to 2.5 hours. Both sides will only be able to talk about evidence and testimony that was admitted during the trial, which means the defense will not be able to bring up Odinism or any of the third-party suspects they claim actually committed the murders. When closing arguments are over, the jury was then given instructions. If they have reasonable doubt, they are instructed to find Richard Allen not guilty. If they believe Allen committed the murders, they are instructed to find him guilty. After that, it will be up to the jury. Deliberations could take hours or days. The 12-member jury, 3 alternates excluded, must reach a unanimous verdict. If they are unable to do so, the trial could end in a mistrial. Okay, so let's go over here. Defense attorney Andrew Baldwin writes Rick on a coffee cup and gives it to Allen. Normally, Alan gets a coffee from the courthouse, but today Baldwin has purchased one for him from a local shop. At 8:47, Richard Allen enters the room. Russell reports that he has a regular, large-size Bible today, and not the typical Gideon-style Bible he's had in the past. He is heard saying he loves the coffee. He shows defense attorney Jennifer Auger a verse in his Bible. The prosecutor, Stacy Daner, is seen hugging the German and Williams family members. Abby's mother is crying and being comforted by her family. At 9:04 a.m., the judge enters the courtroom. Jury enters at 9:07. The judge says the jury again had supervised contact with their electronic devices. She explains some of the case-specific jury instructions. 1, the jury must follow all law while deliberating. 2, the jury must consider all facts. Judge Gull reads all the counts against Allen. He shakes his head as the judge reads the charges that say he killed Abby and Libby. She explains the concept of beyond reasonable doubt and the definition of murder, and she explains that if the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Allen killed the girls, they must find him guilty, and vice versa. She explains intentionally and what it means. At 9:17 a.m., the prosecutor, Nick McLeland, began his closing argument. He told the jury February 13th is a day Delphi will never forget. He said the state has proven that Allen is bridge guy. He said the state has done just that. McLeland talks about the day, where Libby was the last time she talked to Becky Patty, Libby's grandmother. He is showing the jury a PowerPoint with Libby and Abby's Snapchat photo from Kelsey German's car. He recounts the search Libby's father made and how he called Becky Patty. McLeland tells the jury about the search and that Brad Weber, the neighbors, let them look around his property. He says they did not look through the house at that time, however. McLeland goes through the testimony of several people on the bridge and in the area that saw Bridge Guy, from Betsy Blair, who saw the girls, to Sarah Carbow, who saw the Bridge Guy, muddy and bloody. He says that doesn't happen around here, referring to the murders. He describes the bodies being found. He shows photos of the girls' clothes in Deer Creek, and he describes the crime scene being secured. McLeland begins to talk about firearms and how officers in Carroll County carry 9mm handguns, not .40 caliber handguns. He says, remember that for later. He shows the crime scene and says, this is what they saw. He says a phone was collected from under Abby's shoe, which was under her body. He says they collected a cartridge and shows it at the scene. McLeland shows the jury a photo of Libby's phone. He shows the Bridge Guy video from February 13th, 2017 at 2:13 p.m. He says the video shows the moment they were forced down the hill by the guy in the video, Bridge Guy. He forced them down the hill with a gun, McLeland told the jury. He says, Libby said in the video, that be a gun. He shows the jury an enhanced version of the Bridge Guy video. McLeland says law enforcement interviewed people on the bridge that day. He shows a photo a witness took of Freedom Bridge. He recounts Bree Wilbur saying that she saw a man on the trails walking with a purpose. He shows the jury Betsy Blair's Fitbit information. He talks about Sarah Carbow seeing a man muddy and bloody on 300 North. McLeland talks about Chris Cecil's forensic examination of Libby's phone, how he got health data from it. He says the data confirms when the girls were at the bridge. He said the GPS shows where movement was at 2:32 p.m. and that there was no more movement after that. He goes over the timeline with witnesses when they arrived, where they went. He says Bryan Wilbur arrived at Freedom Bridge at 12:25 p.m. that day and walked to the High Bridge. She took a photo at 1:26 p.m. at the bridge. He says she ran into Bridge Guy while walking back to Freedom Bridge. McLeland tells the jury about Betsy Blair passing a camera at Hoosier's hardware store heading to the High Bridge. He said Kelsey German's car was also seen on that camera, passing after she dropped the girls off. He said Blair saw a man on the bridge and passed Libby and Abby as they arrived on the bridge. He said the Bridge Guy video was taken at 2:13 p.m. He tells the jury that Libby's phone stopped moving at 2:32 p.m. He says that Sarah Carball passed the Hoosier Harvest Store camera at 3:56 p.m. and said she saw Bridge Guy and that he was muddy and bloody. McLeland says if we can determine who Bridge Guy is, we can determine who killed Abby Williams and Liberty German. McLeland moves ahead to 2022. He describes Kathy Shank finding the lead sheet regarding Richard Allen. He describes Shank taking the tip to Tony Leggett, a detective working on the investigation. He describes Conservation Officer Dan Dublin downloading a photo of Allen from the BMW. From the BMV. McLeland says that it was determined that Allen's car was the only 2016 black Ford Focus that was registered in Carroll County in 2017. He says former Sheriff Steve Mullen went to Hoosier Harvest Store and got footage from the camera there of Allen's Ford Focus at 1:17 p.m. He says that on October 13, 2022, Mullen called Allen in for an interview. He said Allen confirmed that he was wearing the same clothes Bridge Guy was wearing. McLeland tells the jury that Allen said he saw 3 girls, but in the interview he changed the time he was there. He said Allen became angrier as the interview went on. He shows the jury photos of Allen's Ford Focus in the garage during the search of Allen's home. He says that they found the blue Carhartt jacket in Allen's home. McLeland says, surprise, surprise. McLeland said they found the Sig Sauer .40 caliber handgun and cartridges that were the same brand and caliber as the cartridge found at the crime scene. McLeland calls it a Bridge Guy starter kit. He said they found a memories box, and the box contained a .40 caliber cartridge. He said the investigators found many electronic devices, but not the phone that Allen used in 2017. McLeland tells the jury that Allen searched, "Should I die now?" after looking at Delphi News in April of 2022. He tells the jury that Melissa Oberg found the cartridge at the scene, cycled through Allen's handgun, and her work was verified. He said Allen confirmed it on October 26, 2022 interview that he never loaded his gun or clothes, that he never loaned his gun or clothes out to anyone. He said Allen confirmed he did not loan anyone ammunition, so he never loaned the gun, clothing, or ammunition. So somebody else having it? McLeland said Allen was arrested because he is Bridge Guy. McLeland talks about the calls that Allen made in prison to his mother and his wife, and he describes a call that Richard Allen had with his mother when he said he has found faith. He plays a call with Richard Allen's wife where Richard Allen says, "I killed Abby and Libby." His wife says, "No, you didn't, dear. They are screwing with you there, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of it." He shows the confession letter that Richard Allen wrote to the warden. He shows the report from Dr. Walla on April 5th, 2023, where Allen says his intentions were sexual in nature. Allen is shaking his head, apparently, throughout this, according to the reporter, Kyla Russell. McLeland tells the jury that Walla said that Allen's behavior changed after his attorneys visited, and that the shift in his behavior was intentional, and that he was not psychotic. McLeland reads multiple confessions made by Richard Allen in prison, including one Richard Allen made about using a box cutter to kill the girls. McLeland says Allen told his mother in May of 2023 that, "I wouldn't sit here and tell you I did it if I didn't." He talks about another confession that Allen made in January of 2024 after he had been moved out of the Westfield Correctional Unit. McLeland describes Brian Harshman, the officer who read Waller's reports and listened to Allen's phone calls. He describes Harshman discovering the detail about the white van Allen said he saw while committing the crimes. He said Harshman verified the owner of that van in 2017. He tells the jury that the owner of that van, Brad Weber, did drive it that day. He points to Allen and says something only the killer would know. Allen raises his eyebrows. McLeland said Harshman knew it was the same voice as Bridge Guy in all the calls he's listened to from Allen. McLeland shows the jury all the charges, which include charges for felony murder for killing Libby and Abby. He tells the jury now the pieces come together. McLeland says Bridge Guy stole the youth and life from Libby and Abby. He shows the Snapchat photo from Kelsey German's car again. He says something in Libby caused her to begin recording on her phone. He tells the jury that there was a pause in the health data on Libby's phone before Allen killed the girls. He says, grabbing for her throat, struggling to stay alive, she begins to cry. He says Allen lived in the community for 5 years but didn't know he left a cartridge at the scene. McLeland reviews 3 points: the Bridge Guy, the bullet, and the confessions, and says, I believe the evidence is firmly convincing that Richard Allen is Bridge Guy, and he killed Abby and Libby. Okay, and then he was done with his, and then we have the defense. Rozzi, the defense attorney, told the jury that they've been there for almost a month and they've seen 17 days of evidence. The defense trusts that what you've seen and heard over the last few weeks. Rozzi says there's 4 main themes. 1, a broken timeline. 2, bumbled ballistics. 3, false confessions. 4, digital forensics. Rozzi tells the jury that the state has presented a theme of what they don't want you to hear is what we had to tell you. He says we had to do their job. Rozzi expands on it by saying that the state refused to have height analysis done on the Bridge Guy. He says hours of video interviews from 2017 were lost, and Rozzi tells the jury the state had to look at the detail about the Ford Focus after doing a BMV search in the middle of the trial after a juror asked about it. He said the juror asked if it was the only 2016 black Ford Focus registered in 2017. Rozzi begins to describe witness testimony, saying that Brad Heath said he saw an unusual man that day. He said Betsy Blair's testimony didn't tell the whole story. Rozzi says, I have to take a breath before I talk about here when referring to Sarah Carball. He says Sarah conflated muddy with bloody. He tells the jury that they may discount a witness, calling it credible dubiosity. He said the jury then can discredit Sarah. Rozzi said the prosecution did not tell them about David McCain, Shelby Hicks, or Cheyenne Mill because it doesn't fit their narrative. Rozzi told the jury the prosecution didn't include Richard Allen's timeline regarding how he got to the bridge. Allen nods his head in agreement in the courtroom. Rozzi suggests to the jury that they should use 2 pieces of evidence to exercise common sense, the 2 interviews from October 13th and October 26th of 2022. Rozzi says that Brad Weber's gun could not be excluded as the one that cycled the cartridge found at the scene. Rozzi says that Brad Weber's had sticks in his garage, and the state did not mention that. He brings up Weber's account changed from February 13th. Rozzi talks about phone calls on April 3rd that the state of 2023 that the state did not bring up at all. Rozzi says the state did not offer information on the FBI leaving the investigation. He says the sticks laid on the girls' bodies were not collected. Rozzi brings up the Westville videos of Allen. He says Allen was in solitary and without human interaction. He said the state only wants you to hear a few words. Razi says the magic bullet is the majority of the state's case. He said the state just wants the jury to believe Oberg and ignore the state not bringing up photos. Use your common sense, he says. Razi mentions Libby's phone being plugged into an accessory was not brought up by the state. He shows the jury a phone timeline. You should question their credibility, Razi says, referring to the prosecution. He says the state was desperate to make an arrest. Razi tells the jury that Brad Weber's van detail was only recently added this year. He says it took 7 years for the hair and DNA testing to occur. Razi says that Allen's Google searches have no proof that Allen actually made those searches. The searches are only registered to his email. Razi said that the Google search information was forensic examiner Chris Cecil's offering the jury fast food. Razi tells the jury that the man who performed the autopsies on the girls, Dr. Roland Kaur, said in a deposition that there may have been more than one murder weapon, but now says it could be a box cutter. He said Kaur said this after meeting with the prosecution 3 times. Razi says that they should consider that Sarah Carball didn't see anything. He says the state only has a few key moments in their timelines. February 13th at 2:13 p.m., the Bridge Guy video. February 13th at 3:56 p.m., Sarah Carball sees the man walking on 300N. Razi calls Carball's testimony worthless. He said that Abby would have lived for 5 to 10 minutes and could have screamed, but nobody heard any screaming. Razi says the state ignored that there could be more than one killer. He says he also ignored that someone else could have accessed the bridge from the south side. He says that the state suggests the crime was labor-intensive and committed by a 5'5" man without a trace in a short period of time. Razi said it's just implausible. Razi tells the jury Allen went to law enforcement after the murders in 2017, and he was also cooperative in 2022. He said that Allen still cooperated after he knew he was a suspect. Razi said even through the face of lies, Allen stood strong. He said Allen lived in the community and didn't have a reason to leave because he didn't do it. Razi brings up the forensic examination Oberg did of the cartridge found at the scene. He says Oberg's testing did not show sufficient agreement between the cartridge that was found and the cartridge that was tested. He says the photos from the cartridge testing should be the main thing the jury is stressed by because there isn't agreement. Razi said Oberg then told them, "You should just believe me." He says the state did not have the cartridge re-examined because Oberg's work was so horrid. He tells the jury that Allen's situation in this case is unprecedented, referring to Allen being in solitary confinement. He says Richard Allen was treated like a convicted murderer. Allen nods in agreement in the courtroom. Razi tells the jury that Richard Allen was immediately placed on suicide watch. They most all are, right? That's everything we heard with the turtle suits. Everyone would have a breakdown under those circumstances. He said that Allen was in solitary confinement for 13 months. He asked, how much can one human endure? Razi said it was insulting that the state did not want the jury to see the video of Allen in Westville. He says Allen was not faking it, and even Dr. Walla and Dr. Martin said they weren't sure he was faking it. He said the Indiana Department of Corrections medical standard was to keep Allen alive. Razi tells the jury, you should be insulted. Razi says Allen was having false memories during some of the confessions. He says the state lied about Libby's phone. Razi said someone was using the phone between 5:45 p.m. and 10:32 p.m. on February 13th. He said someone plugged something into it during that time. He said there's no explanation because the phone is right. Razi tells the jury that there is no trace evidence that connects Allen to the crime scene. He said that Dr. Polly Westcott, a neuropsychologist, said that Dr. Walla's notes read more like a story despite Allen being psychotic and not coherent. He says the state was desperate to make the sound in the bridge guy video, the sound of a handgun racking. Rozzi told the jury that there is a question as to the girls' bodies where they were at the scene on February 13, 2017. He says the Smith & Wesson cartridge found in the memory box is a very common brand. Rozzi says Allen found God because he was in his cell alone with only a Bible, but that's not why he confessed. Rozzi told the jury that there are 5 components for them to keep in mind. 1, nobody identified Richard Allen as bridge guy. 2, no digital data connects Allen to the crime scene. 3, no clothing connects Allen. 4, no DNA connects Allen. 5, no trace mineral connects Allen. Rozzi acknowledges the girls' families. He says, this has been a long journey. Rozzi says, at the end of the day, the state's timeline has crumbled. The magic bullet is nothing more than a tragic bullet. Rozzi shows the jury a photo, a rack, a medieval torture device. He shows a photo of a thumbscrew. He says these tools are not far from what Allen experienced in solitary confinement. Rozzi said these tools are still used. They just evolved. Rozzi shows 4 photos of Allen in prison. In the photos, he is covered in feces while being dragged, while wearing a spit hood. While the photos are being shown, according to Kyla Russell, Richard Allen looks away and his wife Kathy is crying. Rozzi says rendering a verdict of guilt could be endorsing this behavior. Rozzi asks the jury to set Allen free. He finished at 12 p.m. after speaking for an hour and 17 minutes. Okay, now the rebuttal. At 1:07 p.m., after lunch, McLeland brings his rebuttal to the defense's closing argument. He says it's been a long 3 or 4 weeks, and now's the time to hand the case over to the jurors. He tells them, you're in the driver's seat. I'm not up here to tell you how to feel. McLeland says the defense did not back up their claims that the prosecution has witnesses on the trail that day, and that they simply reaffirm that Allen was there. He tells the jury that witnesses after the murders on the High Bridge do not matter. McLeland points at Richard Allen and says that he used a gun to scare them. He says Libby had a blood outline of a tear on her face. He tells the jury that Oberg's testing was verified, that it links Allen to the crimes. Kyla Russell says Richard Allen is extremely engaged and looking at Baldwin with disbelief. McLeland says, words matter. Why don't Allen's words matter? He says that there are 2 victims in this case, Abby and Libby. He says they are Richard Allen's victims, but they aren't just victims, they are heroes. McLeland says, Libby said she is going to help somebody to help police solve crimes, and that's exactly what, that someday she's going to help police solve crimes, and that's exactly what she did. McLeland ends the rebuttal. Okay, the jury instructions then began. Judge Gulls said the alternate jurors will be in the deliberation room, be engaged, but will not participate. She says that their decision must be beyond a reasonable doubt. She said the burden is on the state to prove that. She said that it is not beyond all possible doubt. She says that defendants are not convicted on suspicion. She tells the jury their decision must be unanimous. She tells them if they are left with 2 interpretations, they must choose one that sides with innocent. She says that they can take into account any bias the witness may have. She says that they should believe the witness until they cannot, with a good reason. She says that nothing she said during the trial should be considered evidence. She says that there are no transcripts of the witnesses. She says that there is nothing that was not admitted. She told the jury that during deliberation they must consult with reason. She says bailiffs will be outside the deliberation room. She tells them they cannot leave until the full group is present. She says there is no mention of sentencing in the paperwork. She says a foreperson will be chosen and will sign the verdict. Gull said the bailiffs took an oath that they will not communicate. At 1:24 p.m., the jury leaves with the instructions. And Judge Gull now lays out the expectations for those outside the deliberation room. She says the attorneys need to be within 5 minutes of the courtroom. She says if the jury needs to see evidence, all attorneys will be invited. She said that Allen will be brought in if the jury requests. She said that the jury will pick a foreperson. She says the jury will not deliberate on Sundays. She said the jury will deliberate from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily, unless at 4 p.m. they choose to stay and deliberate longer. She says the jury will not deliberate on Sundays. Court is off the record at 1:27 p.m. on November 7th, 2024. So let's see what you guys think about this now. I'm going to do a poll. Okay, let me do the poll here. So let's see what you guys think about this. Hi, Native Libra. I'm going to do a poll. Hold on, I'm going to shut my video here. So it's making. Hi, Lil Lighty. Hi, 61. Hi, 61. Did you ever give me your address so I can give you some of those little boxes? I don't think you did you? Okay, let me see here. Let me do the poll. Start a poll. All right, let's see here. Okay. Let me do this, okay? Yeah, you need to do that. Okay, so let's see what's happening. All right, so what were your thoughts about those closing arguments? Let me see here. Oh, I should go into live chat. That's what I should be at, live chat. Okay, a little lighty. Gail B, hello there. Sassy Darcy. Those girls, yeah, didn't have to die. No need to do that exactly. Okay. Let's see what happens. You've got 64 saying guilty so far. You have 64 saying guilty. 9 say innocent, 27% saying and there's going to be a hung jury. Okay, let's see what else happens here. How did you feel? I think the prosecution closing was pretty compelling, that he's the bridge guy. I think that. I don't think... I think I'm pretty confident they're going to find him guilty. Okay, we've got 54% now guilty. And, you know, my gosh, that's almost a 50 split between people thinking guilty and hung jury and innocent. That's a little scary. That's a little bit scary. Now it's a little bit better. It's 60-40 now, pretty much. That is scary. 60-40. And I don't know whether it's just that the people voting here may be biased by a lot of bigger creators that are sided with the defense, or they're really, I don't know. So what do you think? What do you think? 62% say guilty. Innocent, 6%. Hung jury, 31%. We're going to take another, well, I'm not going to take a poll. I'm just going to tell you right in. Do you think we'll have a verdict tomorrow? Do you think we'll have a verdict tomorrow? Put yes or no, please, in the chat. Just type up yes or no for a verdict tomorrow. Little lady believes he's guilty. Thank you, little lady. Do you think they'll have a verdict tomorrow? Yes or no? I think they will. I think that jury wants to get home. I think they've been sequestered too long. I think they want to get home. I think they're going to have a verdict tomorrow. We have 62% saying guilty. Kevin says no verdict tomorrow. Let's remember what happens. Misbehave says hung jury, but I think he's guilty. Hopefully I'm wrong, Carolyn. Thank you, Misbehave. Hello, Lynn GMB. How are you? I wonder if are you the old GMB without the Lynn? I don't know. Welcome. Sad says no verdict tomorrow. Sad, you say no verdict tomorrow? Okay. So far we have, the vote is for no verdicts, and 67% in the polls say guilty, 6% say innocent, and 26% say hung jury. Linda, hi Linda. Undecided. Verdict tomorrow. Okay. So Linda's got a verdict tomorrow. I think there'll be a verdict tomorrow. I think by the latest Saturday. Hi Native Libra. You think he is guilty, but the state botched so much. I don't know. Misbehave says hi Kevin. Hey Carolyn. Okay. Scooter, are you in here? Do you think there'll be a verdict tomorrow? Hi, 61. Do you think there'll be a verdict tomorrow? Okay, look at the guilty, 65%, innocent, 5%, hung jury, 30%. Okay. Lynn says guilty. Do you think there'll be a verdict tomorrow, Lynn? Linda, did you say verdict tomorrow? Sad, says Kevin. Thank you for the flower. Oh, you didn't get a flower? What's the matter, Sad? There's your flower, Sad. Kevin's giving you a flower. Did you miss one? Okay. Tomorrow. Lynn says yes, the verdict will be tomorrow. Little lady, did you say there'll be a verdict? You said no, right? Tomorrow? No verdict tomorrow, Native Libra says. High 61 says, yes, possibly. Okay. 62% now are saying guilty. 33% are saying a hung jury. 5% say innocent. Linda says, I just don't see them having a verdict tomorrow. Okay. I'm listening. Oh, no, honey gave me a flower. Oh, because you had a question mark. So it was like, I thought it was like, oh, no flower for me? No flower for me? Lynn says it won't be not guilty because why wait another night in jail? It won't be not guilty because why wait another night in jail? I'm trying to think what that means. It won't be not guilty because why wait another night in jail? It won't be not guilty because why wait another night in jail? That's not, I don't know. So right now, okay, I'm going to go to the votes. Guilty, 61%. No, the jurors can't go home. They've been sequestered this whole time. Guilty, 61%. Innocent, 4%. Hung jury, 35%. 35%. Hung jury. Look at that. So that's very, very different than a lot of other polls we take. Usually when we're like at this point, we have almost 90% or greater for the guilty. Lynn says, for Richard Allen to get out of jail, why spend another night? Jurors can go home. No, the jury is sequestered. High 61, they've been sequestered. That's why they have court on Saturdays, and I believe they even one time had it on a Sunday. It's because they're sequestered. And it's been a long time. Laura, hi Laura. Laura says, I think that sounds like if they were sure he was not guilty, they would have returned the verdict right away so he wouldn't spend another night in jail. Okay, but maybe they're just not sure. I mean, maybe they're all not in agreement. Let's just say they're all not in agreement. But, yeah. Because usually if the verdict comes back right away, that's bad news. That's usually a guilty verdict if it comes back right away. And you would think, well, couldn't it come right away if everybody thinks unanimously this person is innocent? Yeah, right? If they've been watching the whole trial and they're thinking, oh my gosh, this person's innocent, why couldn't then they just give forth a not guilty verdict just as quickly? But every time they come back so quickly, everybody knows it's a bad sign. And it's hard to understand why it's such a bad sign. Why couldn't it just be that it's been proven that the person is innocent. But anyway, it's usually a bad sign. So here we got guilty, 62%, 4% innocent. Laura, how's it going? Did you go back to court? I don't agree with that statement. I was trying to translate what it sounded. No, I know what you were doing, Laura. I know, I get it. Hi, I have a clip for you. I did end up going this morning. Do you want to come up and talk? If you do, you have my email. You can send me an email. If you want to come up and tell me anything about it, tell us anything about it. You have a clip for me. You listened to you were there during closing arguments? You'll send me your clip first? Okay. I'm not sure what the clip is. I'll look at it on my phone. They just couldn't talk about the case. Yes, they left by lunch. I saw the bridge guy video. Oh, okay, you saw the bridge guy video? I did make you a video. Okay, great. You mean like of you talking outside? Is that what you're talking about? And I can play it over here? You give me permission that I can play it over here? It was short, just saying, hi, Carolyn, I did make it here. Oh, okay. And just let me know in there that I have your permission to play it. Yes, very short. Okay. Yes, permission granted. Okay. Yes, send it over. Just let me know when you've sent it over. Let me know when you've sent it to Bob. Misbehave says the defense is so dirty. I hope the jury doesn't forget what this is all about. Justice for Abby and Libby. Look at that. We're stuck at 64% guilty, 4% innocent, and 32% a hung jury. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. You just sent it. Okay, I will go look. Okay, I'm trying to look at something that you sent me earlier. I'm a little lost on this. I want to tell you something about another name. Okay, that name you mentioned, in there, there's a lot of names that have that same name. Just saying, and there are some that are that I know, but I don't think that. Okay, sorry if that's cryptic to everybody else. Okay. All right. Trying to get to your email here. Hang on, guys. I'm getting the clip over here. Just taking a second here. 96. I don't know why we have Kohberger up there, but we're going to be putting the video up there, so I'm just going to try to get the video over here. Okay, here we go. Let me download this. Okay, and let me grab this. Got this song in my head, it's driving me crazy. All right, let me see if this is going to let me go. Let's see this downloads.
Hi, Carolyn.
Okay. Oh, you're very pretty, Laura. Okay. Let me this over here.
Hi, Carolyn. I did end up making it. I actually tried to see if you guys would still be on a live because it's always different hours for me. So this is way earlier than I'm usually up, but sometimes that's when you're still on. So let's see. There's the courthouse. There's line sitters today. It's they've rested and they're going to give their closing arguments. So they have about 2.5 hours for each, and then we'll see how it goes from here. All right, catch you later.
So what time was that? Was that the wee hours of the morning, Laura? Let me get Kohberger down here and get at least I put that up there. Let's just see what she says. There we go. I will explain. Okay, call in. Yeah, let me get the I have to start a Zoom, so let me just do that, okay? Hang on 1 second. Let me start up a Zoom. Okay. I'm going to send this to you. I'm just going to put it right on your reply to your other thing. Let's go. Paste. There you go. Okay, I just sent it. So I wonder, yeah, was that in the wee hours of the morning there? Probably, right? You're not, it's safe and everything. I mean, I guess it is. The gas stations were behind you. Just, I don't know, looks a little eerie news, the whole thing. Okay, let's see. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Yeah, call in real quick. Yep. Maybe an hour later than now. Oh, okay. Let's see, what were we doing last? Oh, last night's when I lost internet. Yeah. And I was on real late. I was. Because we lost internet. So I was on much later. Surprised we didn't. You did pop in, I think. But then maybe we were gone. I don't know. So we will see what happens. Oh, let's look at our poll in the meantime. Guilty, 65%. Innocent, 3%. Hung jury, 32%. Wow. 65% guilty, 3%. Innocent, 32%. Hung jury. Laura, you coming in? Did you get the numbers, Laura? I hope that you did. Having a flashback of seeing. Okay, good. Good, good, good. Here we go. Well, let's put it. I don't know why. And this is another thing. This Zoom is driving me crazy. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not the greatest with technology yet, but at least I'm trying to be on my phone at the same time so I can see the chat.
Okay.
This time. What am I? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. So if you have two devices running, you just have to mute one so it doesn't echo.
You're hearing me on the phone, then aren't you?
What?
Oh,
I don't hear an echo. I don't hear it. I've just, maybe you have it muted or lower.
okay. Is this better?
Yeah, I don't hear an echo. So it's okay. So you saw the closing arguments today in the courtroom?
Let's see. All right.
Oh,
Okay, I closed out all their windows. How's this going?
yeah, it's fine.
Okay, awesome. I tried to have my phone on at the same time so I could see the chat, but you know what? I'm not that talented yet. So
Okay.
another night. Actually, wait,
Yeah.
I can see the chat on here in Zoom. Maybe, maybe not. All right, so
I'll tell you if they have a question.
Okay,
But you were able to see the closing arguments in court today?
yes, there's been a lot of different days I've gone, and I followed this for so long, and so I missed certain days that a lot of people that were really powerful for them, or whatever, like seeing the bridge guy video. To finally know what that was all about. I missed that at the beginning, but and then the crime scene photos. Apparently, that was a pretty brutal day.
Right.
It was more than people expected. But I did see the coroner report photos. I mean, that was definitely difficult. However, it was when kind of more looking at the wounds and to analyze that, and the bodies were cleaned up. So I mean, but all of that is just it's very heavy. And then so today it's just different days of because honestly people are camping out in chairs, and you have to have a line sitter. And then our local newscaster Rafael Sanchez had to he decided to take control and all right, we're gonna do this, he kept calling it the Hunger Games, but bring order to chaos. And so there was only 17 people that could get in. And I wasn't necessarily planning on going in, but the person who'd been there every single day for, she's got a channel, just got sick and didn't have her medications. And she, they wanted to call someone local in the middle of the night. So I came. And so, technically that was, because everyone else is doing paid line sitters. So I was all right, well, I'm switching her out.
Okay.
So that's why I got in, and so they played some of the things that I had not seen yet. So if anybody has questions about,
yeah, I want to ask you something first. Who was there from Alan's family?
Okay, so today was very packed, where before it's been all different types of members. So on Alan's side, I did see his daughter. I did see. Well, she's never been any other time before
Except when she testified, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I did see her there. I did see his sister Jamie. She's been there once or twice. I believe she did testify. There's one YouTuber that's become their friend that now goes in. And then they've been having somebody named Bob Mata come. So he was there with that side of the family. And then I can tell you about the other side of the family, or the victims' families.
Victims' families, yeah. Okay,
so that was, I've been in there a lot, and that was hard because, so you've got, Libby has, her biological mother is Carrie, and Carrie has two younger daughters, so they're Libby's half sisters, and the older one looks, so much like her, and but they are also just amazing young ladies. So again, over time they've gone with their mom they're from out of state, so they've gone with their mom, and when it was the horrible photos, you've got one still sitting on her mom's lap, in a very sweet, appropriate way, and so her mom was crying behind her to hide her face. You've got the other, with her hand sitting right next to her, holding her hand. So they were there. But then other family members that I haven't quite seen, the extended family members, Cody Patty and his, wife or girlfriend or partner was there. But I mean, Becky kind of upset because you have such an extended family. So if you've got, the Carrie side, Anna's side, and then Becky's side, that's a lot of seats. And so, but people were more than happy to be, which I thought was very generous, to be like, well, hey, even though it doesn't matter if we sit up all night, if you need your family members to sit here, we're gonna, move for you. So somehow then they got everybody in. Let's see, there's anybody. So that's where Anna wasn't able to go. Becky's there almost every single day. Carrie's there every single day. Anna has testified and she's there as much as she can, but it's just really, really hard for her to see so she definitely has to like separate herself from the drama and stuff like that. So, but it was very packed today. And there was already just, sometimes they come in and there was just a somberness among them all because they knew like this was going to be hard. So,
and
there's that.
What, in your opinion, because you heard the closing arguments like in person, how compelling were they? What can you tell us about them?
Okay, so well, for me, I think it was also, I know people have said they've heard Richard Allen. They were there for the confession. They played Richard Allen's confession. So for me, it was kind of, I had missed that. I'd missed a couple of things. And so it was like a really great summary. I guess I could tell you, do you want me to explain those parts or kind of summarize each closing?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you could. Okay, so if you're going to talk about the prosecution, they showed the bridge guy video, right?
They did.
You want to talk about that first?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Because I feel like I can speak on this because otherwise I'm not the best note taker. Others are probably much better. But okay, so we've never really known what it looked like and what we've always wanted to know. Like, is there another 2 minutes of them down the hill? Is it in her pocket? What do we see? And it was honestly more heartbreaking than I guess I imagined. So if you take that photo of bridge guy that's cropped out, okay?
Right.
So how I would say is, so what she's doing in the video, what you can see her doing is that she did turn it on, and they are towards the end of the bridge, but she was like, I think there's this level between still being polite and not, being a huge threat. So she turned it on, but she was so she did swing her phone up at one point and then put it down, and these they have very high pitched voices, like still very young. A lot of people say that, like, young voices. They're kind of talking, and then so the first one went by pretty quick, but then they have the edited version or whatever. So that's where they stabilized it, slowed it down, turned the angles, and that shocked me because simply for the fact that when you bridge guy is he's stalking her, he's coming right behind her. So imagine, I would say that it was like the upper, if you crop it, it'd be like the upper right hand corner or whatever where bridge guy was. And so then you see, but it's very quick, but then you see Abby, I would say, and then he does make that turn. He's like coming towards her. So imagine that thing that you see of him walking, but then if you enlarge it, and maybe that's like maybe that's like an eighth of the whole video. And then there's Abby real quick. So it's like he's hunting her, chasing her down. It was awful. And then there was still at that point, like there kind of confusion and still like high pitched or just kid voices. Cause there's been so many accusations of them, oh, they're 14. They must've been all this stuff. No, they were clearly just, and they're like, so the last thing I could hear was then, one girl goes, "Oh, would that be a gun?" Like, or I don't. And then he goes, like, there was a guys down the hill, and then I was like, but there's no path. And then when you see him, by this time it was like all like so in that 43 seconds he is progressing and like closing in on him like a shark.
And do you think it looks like Richard Allen?
Well, I would say that is honestly, I don't know that is, it's not to be determined that way. So I don't know that from that is a good piece of evidence to say like, oh, look, he's on camera, this is him, because it really is so quick. So but more of what I learned from it was, yeah, this guy stalked them, like hunted them down. And he, that's what I learned from that more than, so I can kind of get why, but it's definitely not going to be diagnostic or like, oh, here, let's match up the facial expressions. But they had a pretty clear view, because otherwise, let's say they not have that, they would never know. Like, yeah, could it have been? That's why, like, could it have been 12 to 20 people? Could it have been all these different things? Could it have been this? But I mean, this man, like, yeah, he turned toward him, and he was he was booking it to get to them, and they were confused a little bit at first. Like, this doesn't sound right, but they were confused, and it was so that was something I never quite seen. I think that they will be released. Probably not the crime scene photos, but I have heard that like the bridge guy photo might be released. The bridge, yeah. So, but you really can't necessarily make him out. But I guess that was the whole point of Doug Carter saying like, but from this little clip though, if this is your, I mean, if I was thinking if that was my hometown, somebody could show me that walk and I would know who that was. So let alone the person's family members. And one of the things Kathy did say was, because there's all the confusion of like, he did come forward, but one of the things she said to him, through tears, I guess, really quietly was, you said you were just at the trails, not on the bridge. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. So, okay, so then they showed that. Did you see any of the videos they showed of him with the feces and
no, no jurors saw that. Or sorry, nobody in the gallery saw that.
Okay.
Because they turned that away. So, did not see that.
Okay.
But I did hear some recordings of his confessions today. And my thoughts about that were, when I hear it told, I was a little bit, or almost a little bit disappointed with the way some people read it about the content. And it's like, oh, that's not really as maybe profound as they're saying. When I heard it today, I mean, he was dedicated. Like, he was very, the bridge guy sound didn't strike me as much as this confidence and this just lack of actual awareness. It's just not how somebody would normally react. It was very bizarre, but he was very persistent to his mother and there was that he had done it, and he was telling them over and over. So it wasn't just once or twice, like, no, you didn't. Come on, they're messing with your brain. It was pretty persistent.
And did you hear him saying, like, will you still support me? Will you?
Yes.
Okay.
And she just kept, and over and over, I think it was more times than I thought of, like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. No, you're not saying this. Nope. And it was kept going on, and he was very sure in his answers.
Okay, and Lynn is asking, was he calm?
Yes. Yeah. Eerily calm, right? And then one of the things one of the psychologists had said is that he's so insecure and he needs Kathy and he's so worried about what people think of him. But yet, to me, I've always gathered he is such, like, I guess, okay, let's also think about, way back to Chris Watts. If he really had like a psychotic thing going on and then you come back from psychopathy or psychosis or something, not psychopathy, but then you'd spend every day in jail crying about, I can't believe this happened when I was, right, out of my own awareness. And doesn't feel that way. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say about him is like, he like looks around and stares down, or just, again, his lack of,
remorse.
Well, apparently another thing he did say was that surprised me was that he told another psychologist when he was not in psychosis that he just really wanted to apologize to the families. But I think I don't even know if it's remorse. It's lack of a true understanding of the gravity of the situation. Like, just like that's more how I got it, of like, does he even, I don't know how that would be. There'd be like Casey. So there was one girl there. I guess she killed her mom, And this was an example I heard because they were saying like she killed her mom and then she was on the stand. And then as soon as she saw cameras turned on, she kind of like all of a sudden acted like, posing to, it's like, do you not realize that this is not a good look for you? You're at a murder trial.
Right.
That's kind of what I gather from him. It's like, he doesn't, it doesn't strike me as a regular, typical person who's just a little anxious and shy who, is nervous and cares about what people think.
Okay.
You also have these, so I also looked around because one of the things I've always talked about is his prop reading glasses. He's had them on every single day. So, and he's never had to read them before. I've only seen him take them down once. But then otherwise I was like, he just wears them on his head in court all day on his bald head like they're sunglasses.
Okay. And do you see him with the Bible?
I did not see that.
Okay. And so then with the prosecution, I mean, how strong was their closing? Was it very strong in the rebuttal?
It was heartfelt.
Mm-hmm.
It was heartfelt, very succinct. That prosecutor's very impeccable with his words, and he doesn't go over emotional, but he sticks with the facts. It kind of, I have not seen the movie yet. I'll have to see it, but someone was like, that was a lot like Matthew McConaughey and A Time to Kill.
I didn't see that either.
Yeah, that's my snoring dog. Sorry.
It's okay.
That's what a lot of people thought about that. So he kind of he told their story beautifully and made you feel like this is what they went through. Like I feel like he did justice for them. Okay.
He's playing. He's not an underdog. He is playing. He is not an underdog. Oh, he's playing that he's weak like that. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I think. Someone's saying no. Yes, that's what someone in the chat is saying. They're saying he is playing. He's not an underdog.
Oh well, that's a good thought because where I've heard that being said is that it's supposed to be he's this timid guy who's so dependent, so this and this and this. But then one of the things the defense wanted to say was, he was actually I don't know if the defense said it, but even. They all thought he was extremely forceful back towards Jerry Holman. So Jerry Holman he's now Superintendent Jerry Holman. He's about a linebacker, but like 6'6" guy. And they've said before oh my gosh, you shouldn't, he shouldn't have scared him or whatever. But that's what police do. I mean, are they allowed to intimidate? I mean, so he's taller than him. But is this going to be a rule? You always have to find someone who's the exact same body type size? Is like
no.
I mean, so he was actually people were surprised at his level of cockiness, like back towards the police, I would say. So I didn't get to see that video, so I can't vouch for that. But that's what I've definitely heard.
Okay. And then what about the defense and their closing?
I would say that was about, and I guess I don't know where everybody stands. And so I know that one thing is I've learned that this is a very divided case, and some people feel one way and some people feel another, and I understand that. So I guess having seen everything, I really do feel like now it is one person, but. So I will say that the defense had about 16 points of things that were grasping and reach. So these 16 things of here's what the state's done that's silly, and I wish I had my notes, but it just little things of like, well, they didn't tell you this, and okay. So the other thing, like number one, they didn't tell you about the random hair. Well, let's talk about that hair because. They did that as like a talking point, get the media talking right before their last chance because they knew it was at least mitochondrial DNA tested. So it was tested to some degree. They didn't just never test it. So they kept trying to say that there was, okay, that's one of the main 16 things they were saying. It's like at times where they tried to get them on things where they would say globally, like this was never tested. But it's like, well, no, they knew it was a female familial member. They didn't, but they made it seem like it was this unknown male's hand in her grasp. She grabbed reached out and grabbed 15 hairs from the unknown man's head, and that's not how it was. So, and then they talked about some other evidence thing that they didn't even get tested for this time. So they're kind of, that was their thing. And then what else was it? But not once did I really hear them say something like, well, Richard Allen wasn't there. There was no other, after all of this, there were so many things left out that I wanted answered. Like, well, what did they even say his alibi was? Never discussed it. So they never even said Richard Allen wasn't there. Never said he was innocent. They were just trying to poke holes in the investigation timeline. So I've heard, I was not there in the afternoon. I heard that what then the prosecution came back with is kind of saying that, like, you weren't able to say this and this about the client, but what you are able to say is, yeah, there were mistakes. It was 7 years in a small town, and we're human. We make mistakes, and there are mistakes in the investigation, but the evidence will show you that. So their big connection was to try to show you that Bridge Guy, the gun or the bullet, and then Richard Allen placing himself there. So they kind of went back to all those stuff. And so they've never tried to use that. That's why they didn't really want to use the sketches and have them out, is because you really can't tell a lot from that photo or from the video.
Right.
About who it is per se, but so they knew that they never tried to use that. That was just like, I mean, if that's all you have and you're trying to find a random guy, you're going to make as many sketches as you can. So.
Okay. So, do you think there'll be a verdict tomorrow?
I do. Actually.
You do?
Well, it's gone way faster than we'd all imagined. So, I think the defense rested a lot quicker. I mean, they had initially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well, they couldn't get a few witnesses. They couldn't get a few witnesses in that they wanted. So that's why That's why it ended sooner. But
I would say about given like the whole the third party factors.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, and then the one that they wanted to testify on Zoom, and the judge didn't allow it.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think they ended sooner, and then of course he didn't testify, and his wife never testified, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's crazy. The daughter did, the wife didn't, and people thought the wife was going to testify.
There was, also so much not brought in because they did show internet searches, some of his searches, but it was more about his Delphi or Netflix searches. When a lot of people have, heard that he was into, he had some fetishes for a type of rage pornography.
Oh, yeah.
But I've heard that, but then that was not put in there. And there was just a lot not put in. And so they thought Kathy was going to testify to be able to say, kind of like Sin Anthony did, or like, oh, I made those internet searches. I made them. But so she didn't end up doing that. So but we never even got, I don't know, like there was, and then at the end, they told the whole story, and there was still a lot left unanswered because for me, I'm still like, well, we've heard that the motive was sexual. We've heard.
Well, he said it in the one confession, right? So he said it in the one confession, and.
But I guess I wanted to know every step of the way of because that they would describe, like, well, okay, where were they and why were her clothes off here, and then why was she redressed?
Yeah, why? Yeah.
The crime flow exactly, and then, so what I have heard, again, these are speculation or rumors, but that there was an SA, or to a degree, but maybe it was
him just looking and doing something
like that. Like it didn't go the way but I thought they would have, describe that in some way, shape, or form. So, but that was never answered. So there's, how does this work? Do you think
so I mean, maybe he made them both undress and then said, hurry up, get dressed. And then, I don't know, for some reason, the one grabbed the other one's clothes or, I don't know how.
So I guess that's where you've done this a lot more than me. So after these things what comes out? And then will we ever have somebody kind of really telling us everything, or is this as much as we're ever going to know?
Well, I mean, what comes out, I mean, no. I mean, you usually never ever get the real story from any killer. Even when they give you their confession, like Chris Watts, that's not 100% at all what happened. They, just like a judge said, I think it was the judge in the Murdaugh case. It was Murdaugh case. Said, you have the opportunity to tell us what happened, and that I have not met anyone that, any killer, any convicted murderer that has ever given the real story. And they rarely do. And, you know, how could you trust anything they say? Sometimes they make it worse than it is, because in then their mind they know they're not as bad as that, and other times they give it out. Now, in the Killer Across the Table, I mean, we do get McGowan tells what he did to Joan, but again, you know, that he's saying it, is that exactly what happened? Is that all of it? So yeah, if they talk later, maybe, but like if he's convicted, you know, maybe he'll talk to somebody at some time and say something, but if he doesn't, then nothing will ever come out.
See, I think he might do a lot of talking. However, I just never knew will they ever come out and come up with, well, here's exactly what our crime scene flow. Like, would they ever tell us more of what?
No, I think whatever they're going to bring to trial, that they've told you, you know, if they didn't bring it to the trial, no. The discovery, I don't know how they're going to release their discovery and when. If they're going to release like that Bridge Guy video and the other videos, I don't know. The police reports, the interviews, the interrogations, usually that's released after a case, you know, is done. So I don't know.
So will that include the other third party? Because the thing is they have absolutely investigated all these people. It's not like they just know. It's just that. So there was definitely years that they did kind of go down the Odin, you know, track or whatever.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was going to come out was that Richard Allen might have been a little bit in, like his brother-in-law who died on a motorcycle. About 5 months before, like he was friends with some people that were into the Odin thing. So I mean, it just wasn't that it wasn't ever a thing. It just wasn't a ritual sacrificial killing where they were taken at another time, taken somewhere else and hung upside down, like in drained of blood, you know. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'll all depend how much they release. I mean, we'll see. And then
I guess I just thought at trial all of it would come out. Like they would tell you, well, at this point, maybe the blood spatter expert, I can send you. I definitely have those transcripts. That was from the 3-day trial or hearing in deciding if the third party was going to come in. So the blood spatter expert, that was pretty interesting. That tells us a little bit more about what would have happened in the exact scene. Mm-hmm. And did you want me to share anything about that?
Sure.
Okay. So that, so when they got to the scene, I guess it would look like, you could just say how they were placed. So this is basically just saying, like, look, they weren't taken away and brought back at 4 a.m. because they said that the scene was pristine. No, it wasn't. It was, if you think about it, it's all these tons of sticks and branches. Actually, the other thing I can show you is, because I think I'm going to walk out there. I've gone out there a couple times before, but I might actually walk out there and show people. As long as you walk up the creek, you're fine. That's my little secret, because now they've got everything else, like no trespassing. But I mean, it's definitely dense woods where they were found. And if you were walking up and down the creek, you would not have been able to see it from the left or right. Now, the blood spatter did tell us that Libby died in 3 different positions. So meaning, like, she was at one point, she was actively like trying to fight back or run. And then I think she leaned against the tree. And that's what they called the F tree. They thought it was some kind of a mark, but it was just kind of her hand. And then they know that she kind of sat down and just kind of, because there was blood all at the bottom of the tree. Mm-hmm. And then they know that and then at one point he moved her, he drug her with her left hand up in the way that her hand was. So he drug her, and they can tell that by the drag marks on her legs. So he drug her back through certain puddles of blood and then laid her near Abby.
Right. So and he must have had gloves on because he didn't leave any.
Well, and here's the box cutter thing is, well, here's a lot of the things that they were trying to set up is that, oh my gosh, the girls weren't running around screaming. It didn't really hit their jugular. But it's like, I think that I've always heard that Abby's was kind of like a arrow where they thought maybe it was just, so it really was a puncture, one big puncture wound. It was kind of, so I just imagine like that then it was like whatever happened that, and then she kind of laid down and everyone's like, oh, there's no defensive mark. So it has to be more than one. It's like, no, I don't know. I just, I think he whatever blitz attacked her and it was really shocking and it was like right to the jugular and then she kind of went down and laid there. So the difference between her though is she had the sweatshirt on and so she kind of, it was all kind of like she literally laid down and the blood was really caked around her neck. So you didn't see it on her face a lot and all that. Her eyes were a little bit open. And then with Libby, she had been undressed. But and then he had done about 5 different cuts. Mm-hmm. But I mean, who's to say? I don't really know what it looks like, but I think it was jabbed into the neck, and I think that shocked her. So they think also, I guess what I'm getting at is that Abby did not have blood everywhere else. She didn't go for grabbing her neck. She kind of like laid down and died right where she was, where they could say Libby died in 3 different positions and her hands were full of blood. So she at one point tried to grab the wound, where she was bleeding from. But I just hate the things people say. They have no defensive marks. It's not that simple. It's not that they literally just, I don't know. But another thing that we'll never quite know is there was talk about a little bit of possible like duct tape residue, but they couldn't tell for sure so that was still very unclear. But that maybe at one point Abby was had something around her mouth to silence her. I don't know. But I mean, some people that speculate that are forensic psychologists or profilers are trying to say like, well, likely what happened was, one had the other tie this one up so that's how you kind of control them. I don't know. So, I thought we would get that. Just the same as Chris Watts. I thought we would get like a detailed, like you could go watch the every step of the way. The police know he was here and they were there, but you don't really get that.
Okay.
So it doesn't feel like closure sometimes.
No, I mean, so yeah. And I was going to say about, so yeah, he's got that going on. And in the courtroom, he's shaking his head on a lot of this stuff they said. Like when they were saying what he did or he killed them, he was shaking his head. No. Did you see that?
They or just other
reporters? I mean, other reporters that, saw the closing arguments.
I could not actually see
not
him. Not
YouTubers. These are journalists that I read.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was going to say
they said that he was shaking his head. No.
Okay, I would agree. Because I was like, that's not something I've seen any other days, but I could not see him from where I was sitting today.
Oh, okay.
So I wouldn't have been able to. Yeah, couldn't see him. I was definitely trying to study the jurors.
Okay, so yeah, they said he was shaking his head. No, and I'm trying to think what else was said. So you saw the bridge thing, and then you saw the photos, and
well, I had already seen the photos. I think what was new for me today was hearing the confessions.
Oh, confessions.
Because it's interesting. I've been kind of cherry picking the days I was able to go, so I could vouch for some things, and then I had to trust other people's views on other things. And so, I will just say that what surprised me about the confessions were having not heard them. Mm-hmm. I remember thinking a little bit like, oh, I thought it was going to be a little filled with more, content. But when it was powerful when you heard it because he was adamant. It was so given if somebody else just read it the way they could read it really innocent. No, he was really secure and trying. And no, I killed Abby and Libby. I did it. And he also said, I know that he's made some false confessions. So he said, he's made up some stories, but he did say to his mom, look, I lied about a lot of things, but I did not lie about killing Abby and Libby. And then he ended up with really, wanting to apologize to their families. So
Right, and he may do that in court. Now, Lynn is asking, does he sound like the bridge guy in those confessions?
That's a great question. So a lot of other people on other days, like there would be like a full day for that. So that was a day I was not there, and some people said that some of those were pretty striking. I only heard they only played 2, and so that was not necessarily. I mean, it kind of was. He was kind of stoic. His voice didn't really raise or lower, kind of just like that guys down the hill. I guess I would say, if I could even reenact what I see now from that bridge guy video, it's more than I thought, because you kind of like, oh, maybe it was very peaceful. They didn't really know. I mean, he's that last 43 seconds, he's on them. He's right there behind her, like coming at her. It was pretty. That was really hard for me, and the person sitting next to me, we were in tears then.
Okay, I mean, and your thoughts are he's guilty?
Yes.
Okay. So, because now the poll has changed, and there's 53% say guilty, 37% say hung jury, 10% say innocent.
Okay.
I haven't seen a poll like this in a long time with such a.
And that's just
like
me,
that.
and nobody has to agree with me. I'm just trying to.
No,
It's very
I
divided,
believe he's
you know?
guilty too. My vote would be for guilty, but I can't vote in my own poll, so I would vote for guilty. I know Scooter believes he's guilty, but she's also scared that they're going to either he's going to get off or there's going to be a hung jury.
That scares me too, because of, I think that was one of the things I wanted to maybe talk with you about another night, or email you with you about, is that there's, starting to be awareness of just what is accurate court reporting. Because I mean, even it's just kind of.
Yeah, I know that you sent me that thing in there about the profiler that was calling out some larger channels and saying that things that they were doing were not okay, and with the victims' families, and
there's been some more tonight. Yeah. Some of them that are just. There was a channel that is discussing the closing arguments, and there's like a hatred for could you believe this? And he said that we know the girls didn't scream, but that Libby was crying because she had a tear in her eye. Please, like, they're just trying to really elicit sympathy, and like, they're allowed to do that in a closing statement,
right?
Like, why is that such a bad thing? It's just
no, it's not. It's not. It's if you watch the Tim Jones trial, that if you want to see a closing argument that elicits so much feeling and makes every one of those 5 kids that was murdered, this prosecutor brings everything out, including like this Woody from Toy Story, that he brings it all out. You knew those kids, and he really made you feel the void that was out here now that those kids were taken away. He did it like no other prosecutor I've ever seen. I've never seen anyone even come close to it. So if they're talking about eliciting something about a tear, well, then they're not too
annoying. Why is it? Some people that are why are they so annoyed by that?
Because they don't want them to feel anything about the victims, right? They're wanting them to just feel for Richard.
Wow.
So I mean, but I mean, then they're really not too attuned to what's going on.
And this particular person, it's I guess it just sometimes I just wonder what the narrative or agenda is, because I've given other friends, I mean, she's definitely not a known name or anything, but in other friends that she knows, I hear that when she talks to them, she'll say this whole one side. Obviously, she said it was like a bloodbath, and how of course it was Richard, and we just didn't know how bad it was. We didn't know, like, and then but then she's still going on lives today saying it was like so disgusting that the prosecution tried to elicit emotion in their, like,
Yeah, they're just, yeah, because it's not fitting with their narrative, and everything is going to be wrong about something. And I mean, they do this kind of stuff.
I know it's really hard. I want to get back to real, like, but to me, I don't know. I'm grappling with that because I'm like, do you really believe that, or why are you like? Can we just all come in, like, kind of come in neutral and then see what lays out? But it's like we're also they're going in so hard in the paint, though, that Richard Allen was also completely, absolutely innocent and completely railroaded, and that he's their hero. And they mocked. I'm sorry, this particular person mocked when he gave even a tiny bit of saying that Abby and Libby were brave and heroic. It's like, because she took the video, and then Abby, at some point, we think one of them stayed with the other. I don't know, but like they're like, oh, come on, please. He called them heroes. It's like, what? These are the. I just don't understand that. I mean, I think
it's victim bashing, and it's a problem over here. Why don't they go and stand up for Nicholas Godejohn if they're looking for somebody that was railroaded or whatever, or was taken advantage of? Why don't they go in a case like that, or in that little the one from Making a Murderer, that Brendan? Right. Why don't they go, Dassey? Why don't they go over there and do that? No, I don't know.
Yeah. When I was in in college, there was a cognitive psychology class, and this was when Dream Killer, the Ryan Ferguson story, it was like the first one before it became a big thing. It was like a 2020 episode or something. It was, Ryan Ferguson, who's.
Refresh my memory, Bryan Kohberger.
Okay, so he is now released. He was like 18, and then there was another person with him. It was a Halloween night. There was a news reporter killed in the middle of the night, just walking out. And this guy had his own show, like 10 to Life. Mm-hmm. So, and he was in there 10 years. But he never made false confessions. This Ryan Ferguson didn't. But this other person that was with him did, because he has anxiety. And I could see in that sense where, like, in the interview they're manipulating him, telling him facts, and he's like, well, I guess I did take the belt, or I guess Ryan did take the belt and do this and this and this. And so then he was really confused, like, did I dream it? Did I not? Like, he was confused. However, Ryan Ferguson had never said he had done it, ever. So I was definitely like, that case was amazing to me, but then they're trying to apply that to every other scenario. And I'm like, but I don't know that. So to me, it was like, yeah, the one guy really was unsure, and but it wasn't Ryan Ferguson, but they've also been able to connect that guy's. It was just the person that went out with him that night, and he was on drugs and had anxiety, and so he like has dreams and is like, did this happen? I don't even remember. And then they were able to jump on that and then convict Ryan Ferguson, but he was never so this whole thing about Richard Allen confessing, not confessing, like. It's not. I don't know. That's a little bit too departed for me. And I don't know.
I mean, they're trying to just say, like, oh, he was just in a mental state, and that's why he confessed. But you heard those. Like, how did he sound in those confessions? Like, did he sound
calm, deliberate, calm, and almost like convincing? But I mean, I guess to give context to it is that I'm glad I heard that today, because I had actually, being in there some days and then hearing like 5 different reports of what happened, I was a little bit like, almost like, oh, this isn't quite filled with what I thought it was, until I heard it. I was like, oh, like, this is deliberate. And yeah, that was kind of surprising and shocking to me. I mean, he was very coherent, and I mean, it wasn't just 1 or 2 times of like, hey, maybe don't say this, he's confused. No, it was over and over and over again. And
right.
he was kind of like almost enjoying the fact that Kathy was getting like upset, and yeah.
Right, and Lynn saying he confessed before acting crazy, and he tortured himself, and the guards had to clean it up, I guess, with all the feces and stuff he did. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, then the last perspective I'll give, and then I'm going to jump off. But so there was, as this went down, I went to the June hearing about June of last year. And that was when they first came out with that picture of him on the news. and his hand was twisted and he had a dirty shirt.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I went to that day, and this is why I genuinely wish it was. I understand why she tried to block it out because of the crazy sides that are literally coming to play here. But I really wish then at least some people could hear it, because then we could all hear it for ourselves. Like, that's how I felt about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. If that wasn't televised, I'd probably be thinking one way. I'm glad that, but I had my own
Right. Yeah.
take. So I really wished it was televised, or at least sound. Because I'll say that last June, though, that one was had because they had to. Essentially, I think he had made confessions, and so then they what I gathered from the end of the day was that they came out with, well, in order to keep representing him, they got our client, did something he shouldn't have done. We told him not to talk, but whatever. He made the confession, so then they had to do this whole thing, and then by the end of the day, it was kind of, okay, well, we just want to move because it is more convenient. And that's exactly how it felt. And then it felt like it was obvious. But then when we left, there were two people that went out and reported things falsely, and it blew up. And it was just like, am I crazy? Did I not hear it that way?
Right.
And I guess there's some other agendas of trying to get on TV.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are. I mean, yep.
But I could be wrong too. So I'm only coming from my perspective. So I respect
Right.
everyone else's, and that's just my thoughts I thought that, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to have to change the time frame then, because he confessed and they didn't want him to, so they're creating this whole scenario, and then they're going to, he put himself out there and said he was watching the stock ticker. Well, back in the day when people didn't, back then they knew, you turn off your phone, it's going to ping. So the whole point is, so the defense can say, you'll never find any connection to him on his cell phone to the scene. I'm like, yeah, because he didn't bring his phone purposely. So, but the thing is, yet he said he put himself out there and he was watching his stock ticker, so his phone should have pinged out there.
Right. So yeah, but they said they didn't find the phone he had in 2017. Isn't that what they said?
Yep, but every other phone was there, and
but you know what? I mean, they still should have been able to get phone records for the phone he had in 2017, and if it was with something like Verizon or whatever, they should still have records on that phone.
It says it was called Ting.
Ting?
Ting, yeah. Well, and this is still there really was more that just wasn't brought in that we couldn't all bring, because I've heard something called a fog reveal. Now, what I'll have to say, Alex Voorhees is very smart, and he's the one who told me about this. He kind of goes on some YouTube channels. So, but from what I gather, it's okay, so there's phone pinging. So you can go that way and see what phones are pinging to this tower and this tower. But the fog reveal thing would be reverse search. So basically, okay, so we do know we've got.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it tells you all the numbers that ping to that tower. Is that what you're talking about?
Nope. So it's so let's say that we have 17 of this guy's phones, and we don't. Well, he threw one phone away.
Right.
Well, so then it'd be using reverse. So it's let's say that if you had the Starbucks to go app, or you had Amazon Prime, or you had Spotify or something, it's buying data back from those apps. So it would be able to say but I guess it's so weird. Only one, it's very expensive, and one man owns the company to do that. I really am not the person to talk about it, but it's, so if you could say reverse of we should be able to go to his own apps that are tracking him and find out if he was there.
Yeah, but I also wonder why they can't do, because they've done it in another case. They took the tower so whatever tower that it was, that if you were on that bridge, that your phone would ping off of, and they looked at all the numbers, and then they connected all those numbers to people. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right,
so let's say they had at that time at 2:23 or whatever the time is, 25 phones pinged in that area. They would go through and do that. I forget what case they did this in, but they did. In a case, and they connected all those numbers to other people, and then they found the one was with their suspect.
Okay, so I think they have done that. I think that they've said that there's. But they have done that, but his phone So you know what? They didn't even cover that because it's like, well, then we're like.
See, I didn't hear about that. About his phone. I heard about Libby's phone.
Yeah, the thing is, I know that they did all this stuff, but I thought it was all going to come out. Every single thing was going to come out.
Well, hopefully it should. Maybe later on, but yeah.
Right, I guess that'd be the ideal thing. So, all right. Well, I won't keep you, but
okay. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just we'll see what happens. I'm thinking there'll be a verdict tomorrow. But
I
we'll
do
see.
too.
We'll definitely keep checking on that. And
how does it probably fill me in? How does this work? Of like, so they go.
Well, that's what everybody's saying too, because like normally, when these trials are televised, like one of the court stations or that's running the trial will have a verdict watch going throughout the day, and then if you just keep that on, whenever the jury comes back, that you see it. But like with this case, we don't see the jury, we don't even see the courtrooms, we don't see anything, so we're just going to have to get it through a reporter.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
And so, but the thing is, it's where all the reporters, they're on top of it. I would like Rafael Sanchez. Some people have been pretty, like, there was also a lottery. And so these are very, I don't know what they did to let certain media in, but like Rafael Sanchez has been, and Russ McQuaid have been covering this for forever, but they had to be one of those that had to come out with the public and wait and barter in those lines. But, and then also like media did get kicked out because they filmed jurors. So, but also then, okay, things that I also don't know, when did they decide a foreman? Is that not just, that is the foreman thing that's not decided from the beginning? They decide a foreman later in the room? Okay.
Yeah. Cheryl Butler says they had the 2017 phone ID. They should have been able to pull that phone data, but they didn't. Or maybe they did, but it didn't support their theory.
Defense or prosecution?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't hear about that. That's what I'm saying. I didn't hear about it. So, but I would have questions as a juror. I would have asked. And I don't know if the jury even asked that question.
I would say they asked. They were intelligent. Yeah. Does that happen in every case? I've never seen like almost every time.
No, this is different, but it's different because I think it's a lot of cases are handled. I've never seen like the jury get to ask all these questions of the witness. Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were. So that's where I was very like, okay, I'm gonna trust what they say because they were. You had a wide range of people. People who definitely knew their guns and ballistics, and your questions were pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an interesting thing. And then is there a certain while till they can or can't talk about this after?
No, as soon as it's done, they're free to talk about it.
Okay.
As soon as their verdict is in and they're dismissed, they're free.
Would you want to interview anybody?
Yeah, I'd love to, but I don't know if they'll come on. Sometimes they go on and sometimes they don't want, like sometimes they go on a Dateline right away.
Oh.
Or, they do, but
I have other connections that I've kind of met through this that are have more information than me that would love to chat with you.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah, what was the other one I was thinking of? Dr. Walla.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to pick her brain after this because I feel like she did her best and she really genuinely cared about Richard Allen. And so she got a lot of hate and she was a witness for the defense. And so it was so weird because within like one 5-hour sitting, you watched him like be nice to her, treat her well, respect, like they needed her to say that he wasn't, acting this way or doing this. And then he turned and was so vicious to her. And so that's just how it is. That's how defense attorneys are. But I would love to know she genuinely cared about him. And so she'd followed, I guess, or just made one post where she said who her favorite, YouTuber podcasters were. Mm-hmm. And so some of them do cover the Delphi case. And she also admitted that, she'd been to the bridge. And so a lot of us have. But my only thought about that is that are you ever going to find somebody who is not interested in that? I mean, that could be her specific interest.
Right.
again, I guess I go back to the one ethical thing. I will have to say that would be a no-no is just that she used the system to look up Kagan Klein. So because so much attention was brought to that, then they made sure she did get released from one company to another.
Mm-hmm.
But so then they used that a lot as, oh, she was fired. But like, well, but so she would be fascinating to talk to.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
She might have watched you back in the day.
Maybe. But yeah.
Any other questions, or otherwise I'll dip out for the night.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. And yes, getting late, but I appreciate it. And we'll see what happens tomorrow, right?
Oh, yes. You'll probably see, you'll probably know way more than I do. I was really, like, as I was walking up, I was definitely like, okay, I will, if you guys are on, I will go live. I will chit chat about it. And then, but then, yeah, as soon as I walked up there, it was like a bloodbath for the line. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, take care.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and have a good night. Get
okay.
some rest.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody. I think, so that's interesting. I think we're going to have a verdict tomorrow. We'll see what happens there. And, let me see. Let me get to that poll real quick. Okay. So now it's really dipping down. Where 49% say guilty, 12% saying innocent, 39% saying hung jury. Very interesting. Yeah, let me see here. So we'll see what happens. It'll be quite something. But I'm going to do this is how we end the night. We wind down. Hi, Gail B. And Cheryl, we don't, one of our rules in here, I don't know if you see it going around, is we don't mention other channels. And there's a reason for that. But I will say that since you put that channel in here a couple of times, then I will speak of it. And I've heard some very not good things about that channel. And I've heard other channels call it out. So that's why I don't want it mentioned in here, because of things that were done there, okay? So thank you for respecting that. Okay, let me go over here. So we're going to end this on the daily puzzle. Uh-oh. Oh, there, that was Laura leaving. Okay. Let me go to home. Hi, Emmy. How are you? All right. All right, let's see what we can do here. Yeah, I understand that the judge has closed the trial, but we just don't mention that. But there is some controversial stuff that's going on with that channel, and that's what I'll say on that. In the opinion of many. That's bad to say that. Let's see. Uh-oh. Oh, no, no, it's fine, Cheryl. It's just, I was just explaining it. It's just the way it is. That's why we just, that I was just explaining, that's why we just have that rule in here. It's okay. It's fine. I see. Good high 60 city. Oh. Okay, and let's see. City killed itch itchy. Do we have itch itchy? Yes, we have itch itchy. Hilt tick. Got tick, we got lit, we got kit. Okay. There we go, we got it. We're done. And I'm going to call it a night because it's been a long one. And we have a verdict watch tomorrow, and I have a bunch of stuff to do tomorrow. I love you guys. God bless, prayers, and we'll see you tomorrow then, okay? Everybody have a good one. Take care. Love you. God bless, prayers.